Have Larkin to lead us in the pledge. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The introduction of our members, we have Larkin Rippeth, Angie Robinette, Margaret Beavers. Ed Evans is not here yet. I'm Georgia West, and this is Dr. Barker, our Secretary and Superintendent. At this time, we'll have the approval of the minutes of September 25th, 2025 regular session. Do I have a motion?
So moved. I'll second.
Second by Angie. Do you have any questions or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We have no delegations of speakers. Discussion items, board members' report and presentations, accountability data, 24-25, Dr. Barker, Superintendent, will do a presentation for the school year 24-25.
So I know I give you
So we'll have to speak up a little bit up here. I think that, because Deanna told me that if you are on the page or the live stream, that you can't hear. So if the board members, when you do whatever, if you speak up too, because the others can't. Yeah, you can turn your mics on as well, or just I leave mine on, but that would help, because if you're on the phone as well, and if you're calling in, you can't hear. It's just a lot of chatter, actually.
So I have shared this handout with you, and it contains the same information we go over every year, because I always want to stress the methodology of the accountability scorecard, which means it's different than the scores. When we discuss the scores from general summative assessment, we're just telling you this is how our children scored on English, language arts, and mathematics and science, based on the scores of the students that we had for full academic year. So accountability works a little bit differently, because they take a look at different indicators and they calculate them differently. So if you could turn to the next page under accountability indicators, just wanted to remind you that we are accountable for academic achievement, for language arts, and for mathematics. We are accountable for the progress our students make in language arts and math in grades 3 through 8. We are also accountable for English learner progress, but we don't have that. We don't have enough to constitute a cell size. They look at the graduation rate. There are two different numbers you see. It's a 4-year graduation rate, and it's a 5-year graduation rate. So usually they take the students who did not graduate in 4 years and see if any of them graduated in a 5-year window. And the rest of the indicators, attendance, of course, it's a K-12 world, so they look at the attendance for students who have been with us for the full academic year. They look at the behavior. High schools are also looked at for on track to graduation, which means they look at the students who were 10th graders at the end of the last school year, and they look if they have gotten credits on all 4 core subjects. So they should have 8 credits on core subjects by the time they reach the end of the 10th grade, and they should have at least 12 credits overall. So they want to make sure the 10th grade is getting where they need to be. And they also look at the post-secondary achievement. So what it means is, do we have students taking dual credit classes and scoring at least a C or higher? And do we have students going to CTC and becoming completers and passing their proficiency test, which is NOCTI? they also look at the AP or AB if the schools offer. So these are the indicators we get judged on, and I wanted to kind of take you to the next page, which talks about just the percentages they use to put us in different levels. So you see what kind of percent you have to meet in order for us to meet standard, not meet standard, partially meet standard, and exceed standard. So this is just, and we go through this every single year, but I always want to stress how this is calculated because it is just so different from the data analysis we provide for you in the month of September. So I will not go over the academic indicators, just because the next few pages are talking about how we calculate that data. So we get a point, or half a point, or a quarter of a point based on how the student scores. If they score a certain level, or if they score at, for example, exceeding mastery, of course we'll get a point. If they go below, like if they are at partial mastery, we still get some sort of like, partial credit for it. So once they assign all the points to all the students who are our students for academic year, then they calculate like what is the percentage of achievement on these indicators. So I want to for you to look at the last 3 pages. So what I have done here, and we have worked with the principals already to look at every single achievement indicator and every single attendance indicator, and we also looked at where they are, whether they have improved, if they did not improve, and we also have the principals create plans based on the data. So the last 3 sheets are the one before, like the 4th one from the back, is just a snapshot of your accountability scorecard. This is something that you will see when you go on the State Department, and you will go into the dashboard for the scorecard. So it just gives you the overall picture, the snapshot of where the schools are. And I always like to remind people, when you see those bars, so the closer those bars from going from left to the right, the closer you're getting to the next level. So it's almost like playing a video game, you're leveling up. So some, like for example, when you look at Bradshaw Elementary in English Language Arts, they are so close to getting to a yellow because they're almost spilling over into the next level. And of course, as you look, attendance is our biggest issue. But a lot of times, like, we have made quite a bit of strides in terms of progress, especially in English Language Arts. And if you see the check marks, it means the schools met their annual targets. What it means when we look at the ESSA and we look at the state plans, they take a look at the trajectory of how the schools will make progress throughout the years. So if the schools meet a certain number to keep them moving and growing, then they get a check mark on the indicator. So that's why you see Fall River, Yeager, and Kimball meeting those annual targets in English Language Arts and Mathematics. So when you turn to the next page, this is where you see the numbers. And this is where I have given you their last year's numbers, their this year's numbers, their comparison to the county, and of course their comparison to the state. What I also have given you is their rank. So what I do usually, I download the data set into an Excel file. I separate elementary, middle school, and high schools. I count how many middle schools, elementaries, and high schools we have in a state, and I rank our schools, where they are in comparison to other elementary schools in the state. So what you're getting here, our principals have gotten the same thing. And of course, this is the public data. Anybody can download this Excel sheet and do their calculations, so I'm not sharing anything secret with you. So for example, overall we have 331 elementary schools in the state. What you see in the ELA progress and math progress, that number went down to 311. What it means is some of the schools in the state did not have enough students in that cell size for the state to calculate the progress. So that's why automatically we lost 20 schools in that calculation. But it tells you have the rank for each school and how many schools it's outranking. So I have on the first page of this, I have included your elementary schools. If you turn to the next page, you will see middle schools and high schools. And when you keep on looking at the data more closely, you see the attendance, as we all talked about, it needs to get better before we can really start seeing improvements in our academics. Because attendance is low, we are the lowest in the state, just as a county. So we want to make sure that we are really focusing on being very specific and making very specific plans to bring our students to school. So the last page is just the county rankings. So that's where I want to spend a little bit more time. So with language arts, we have improved just overall as a county 1%. So we went from 47.65 to 48.58. We are 54 out of 55. And we were the same last year. In math achievement, we went down, and of course in our discussions we talked about last year and the amount of time we have lost due to weather, plus chronic absenteeism of our students, and you see this in mathematics. With the LA progress, we actually, despite all the time that we have lost, we went from 39.72% to 46.3%. So almost half our students grew in language arts, which means we have very strong structures that are embedded to support the learners. So even despite the time we lost, you could still see that we have so many students. And we actually 31 out of 55 counties in terms of our kids growing in language arts. With mathematics, again, this is the math kept us as last of the last, and we all know that it's unacceptable. We need to make sure that we move forward and put supports with our students. And Ms. Payton will talk about the supports, and I'll talk about the supports when we talk about our benchmark data in just a minute. With graduation rate, last year's graduation rate was at 84.21, and this year our 4-year graduation rate actually jumped to 90%. So that's, we were 41st out of 55 counties. With graduation rates, graduation rate for a five-year cohort, if you did not have a really good one in 4 years, it usually does not budge too much percent. So if you take a look, last year, 4-year graduation rate was at 84.21, and it stayed the same for a 5 year. So we did not graduate any students who did not graduate last year. So overall, it went down, but next year, even if we don't graduate any, we will see improvement in our 5-year grad rate, because for our 5-year grad rate will be at least 90%. So if you take a look at attendance went up 3%, which in attendance world it's bad. So we have 51% of our students who missed at least 18 days or more. And Mr. Lester later on will be talking, not this meeting, but later on we'll discuss how we are approaching this issue with different stakeholders. Discipline went up 4%, so we're actually in the middle of the pack with other counties. On track to graduation, when you look at Riverview's data, actually their data improved tremendously from last year, but Mountain View's data declined, so overall as a county, we are seeing 2% decline in on track to graduation. And post-secondary education, it's something that we all need to pat ourselves on the back because it's a product of us working with Bluefield State and now working with Virginia State University and offering as many dual credit classes as we can offer. And it's also a testament of us working with CTC to make sure our students get all the completer courses and they pass NOCTI because those two are connected. But if you see, we are 10th county out of 55 in helping our students get into the world, college or career ready. And probably I told you a couple of meetings before that we are finally seeing at least at around 45 of our students go into college. So we have as a county have a 45% college going rate. So I think it's a testament to your support and to the work with our partners to get these students to a good start with college. But then we also want to make sure that 55% that don't go to college, they have a trade, they have some sort of a backup plan, they have a certification to fall back onto if they don't want to go on to any other trade school or college, so they can have a job and make good money in skilled work. So I will not take too much time of yours, but if you take a look, I also have divided the next three into elementary, middle school, and high school. And as you see, in elementary, we are not, in the way, yeah, we have 55 counties, but in elementary world, we had 54 counties because like some counties don't have specific elementary schools. They might have K-8 schools. And those K-8 schools count as middle schools. So that's why you see 54, not 55. But we were 48 out of 54 in language arts, 52 out of 54 in math achievement, 50 out of 54 in ELA achievement, 49 out of 54 in math. Attendance, we were not the last in elementary. In discipline, we were kind of in the middle of the pack. But we also, what we are seeing in terms of elementary efforts, where we also need to start replicating more and more of these on a middle school and high school level, because as you see, we don't have such tremendously good numbers. The only one that really stands out is your ELA progress, because they were 16 out of 48 in ELA, and in discipline, we're also like middle of the pack. If you go into the high school, four-year graduation rate could be highlighted, and of course our post-secondary work could be highlighted. So the biggest thing that we are working on with high schools is how do we make sure our 10th grade on track to graduation rate keeps on improving, because we are doing a good job with graduation rate and a post-secondary success, but it looks like it's happening in grades 11 and 12. So we're trying to play a lot of catch-up in grades 11 and 12. So we really need to focus on grades 9 and 10 to bring them into the fold, make sure they are on track and ready to graduate by the time they exit high schools. So this is just a quick review of our accountability data. So based on, and I will send you the sheet, we're still waiting on the State Department. They have this little dashboard, and it kind of shows you where we are as a county with all the efficiency indicators. But we are on intensive support from the state for, of course, math achievement, math progress, and on track to graduation. We are on support for attendance, and we are on watch for ELA achievement, but I mean, we know that we are low. We have met all the indicators for efficiency. So I know last year we were on needs assistant with special education and personnel. And this year, and Dr. Reese, remember, talked to you about, we are still on needs assistance. She went over these numbers with you, but we are not on needs assistant on personnel. So we only have one indicator with special education that remains on needs assistance, but everything else we are fully approved and we are fully compliant. But I will get you that sheet as soon as the State Department has that up on their website.
Okay, thank you. You're finished.
just, we're peaceful today. So.
Did you want to do yours first?
I think you need to do yours first.
Okay, so next we have the, I guess the BOY or boy, benchmark data 25-26, Amanda Payton, Assistant Superintendent. And Dr. Parker.
Here's your copy, sometimes I know it's hard to see up there on that screen. I'm not. Okay, so we do this annually, so I know that it's probably going to look very familiar to you, and then we'll talk about some of the growths and some of the areas that we've seen. We just completed our first round of benchmarks. So we do benchmarks on our iReady assessment 3 times a year, but iReady is so much more than that. That's our benchmark platform system that the state requires out of that House Bill 3035 that turned into the Third Grade Success Act law. So we had to pick a benchmark platform from a wide variety of platforms, and iReady is the one that we picked along with like 43 other counties in the state. So the state pulls this data. They pulled it last Friday, and what they're looking at is they're looking at reading achievement and math achievement. So to understand iReady on the benchmark, it's taking the students through an assessment. It is adaptive, so it can tell if a student's struggling or having problems with certain questions. It starts to dig a little deeper to see what foundation level that they're at each standard, but it is assessing where students should be at the end of that grade level. So it might be material that students have never seen before, but that they should know by the end of that grade level. So it allows that assessment to kind of see what do they know in relation to each standard, and then it will build them a pathway where they'll work online to try to build skill levels to get to that end of the grade level standard. So part of reading, I know that we've talked about vocabulary, and I'm just so passionate about getting our comprehension scores up, is that early vocabulary delays can lead to a persistent reading comprehension deficit. So we're working really hard in the district, and we've talked about it, to look at consistently improving what we've already got going on for phonics and phonemic awareness and decoding strategies. We can read, and we've talked about that in our data. Now we have to really work on getting our teachers to have extensive vocabulary instruction that's evidence-based, which will also help with our comprehension, which you're going to see. That's the ELA achievement that we're talking about. All eyes on comprehension now. So overall placement, these are all of our students K through 8. So I don't break them out when I look at the overall placement. Remember, I've talked to you about our pyramid is inverted, and we've talked about that. We should have a very small percentage of red, and we should have a very large percentage of green. So tier 1 are our students who can receive just standard core instruction, those 90 minutes in elementary, 45 to 48 minutes in secondary, and be able to be on grade level. Our tier 2 students are our at-risk students. So those students need something extra, but with a little extra push, a little extra intervention, that they should be able to catch up by the end of the year on grade level. Our at-risk tier 3 students are students who need intensive support. So that's really one-on-one intervention, or one on no more than 3, which becomes a people capacity problem. And how are you able to do that? And that can also be at home. If we could get families to partner with us to work, they could do their iReady pieces at home as well. So that's our pyramid. So overall, we have 43% of our students who are considered at risk for reading. So we'll drill down now into their domains. Angie, this is where I thought it might be a little hard to see the numbers. iReady doesn't give you those numbers, so I have to go in there and physically type those, but I like to look at the percentages to see. Phonological awareness, that's our baseline. That's where we all started to learn how to read. We start working on sounds, putting words together, understanding concepts of print. So really hearing rhymes and those kinds of early phonological awareness pieces. All of our students K through 8 take that assessment if they haven't aged out, and if they haven't, their iReady system keeps up with how Deanne scored last year to how Deanne scores this year. So once you test out of a category or a domain, you're not going to take that again. So 81% of our students in McDowell have mastered phonological awareness. So they're at no risk. Only 15% of our students Very small amount of students need that extra intervention period in phonological awareness, and only 4% are intensive. So this comes back to the work. It'll just pop up. It just does its own thing sometimes. Now Walter will study that and figure that out. So only 4% of our students really need that intensive support. So what we're doing with Ashlock has worked, and we've talked about that. Ms. Ashlock was in the county today. We know we've got to keep this going. We always have new teachers. Ms. White helps us get long-term substitutes in those early education classrooms. So that work can't stop. We've got to continue to train people and teach people that and phonics instruction. So with phonics, 53% today. Remember, we have kindergarten, first grade. Those kids should be just now working on phonics instruction. Even our early second graders should be working on phonics. You shouldn't work on phonics anymore after mid-second grade. So if you're on typical grade level development. So right now, 53% of our students, so doesn't mean that we should be really, really concerned, because our K-1-2 students should be working on phonics right now. 21% in that little at-risk category, and 26% needs intensive. Those probably, already has an algorithm, those are probably our students that are higher than second grade mid-year students. So our third graders, fourth graders, fifth graders that are still having some phonics trouble. Our students with disabilities are included in this data as well. So high frequency words, we have jumped in high frequency words from the first time we did iReady. We were at 30% at the beginning of the year on high frequency. I will contribute that to we have gotten rid of flashcards. Before, an old piece of our toolbox as teachers were when you saw flash words like the word said, we would flash it over and over and over and over, and that's what we would do. Tanya probably did that. Flash, flash, flash. This is said. What's this word said? That is gone. The brain research now shows that actually hinders development of sight word vocabulary. You need to teach the students the sounds that they know in the word instead of just having them take a picture of that word. So we've changed our instructional method here, and I think that that's why we're really seeing 69% and that huge jump in high frequency words. Here's where we continue to work. We're growing. I brought the data. We were at 17% last year when we did this presentation on vocabulary, so we are growing. We have to improve our vocabulary to improve our comprehension. You have to know what you're talking about before you can read and comprehend and understand. So we have to understand words like aviation. We've got to know when we're reading a story and we're talking about aviation that we're talking about airplanes, we're talking about flights. So we're working hard on our teachers to pick the right vocabulary words and to be able to teach that in a way that students can understand and retain that. So with comprehension and literature, or for literature and informational text, we break it out. There's not much difference going on between the two types of text. Oh, you're not clicking, I am. I'm losing it. I'm more worried my cough drop's gone now. So here's a list of our schools and how they performed overall in ELA. Just want to brag on Yeager Elementary, and they were a school that was on improvement. They have come off of improvement. Mrs. Roberts had extensive support at her school, followed that process. She already has WIN groups going. She knows that it's important that students get that intervention. So I'm just really proud of her, and you can see that the work that she did last year has really carried over into the beginning of the school year. I'll give you a second just to look at the different schools. Our two schools that are on improvement now are Bradshaw and Southside, because those are our Title I schools, and they pick the lowest 5% of performing Title I schools in the state. I know you're probably looking at like Sandy River and Mount View. They're not Title I schools, so they didn't label any schools that were not Title I schools on school improvement now. So we know that Southside and Bradshaw are going to be two schools that we have to target. We treat all of our schools as if they could be on improvement. We don't do anything different from the other elementary and high schools that we do, and middle schools that we do from schools that are identified. So I drilled down into the grade levels to see how our grade levels performing. Remember, this is end of the year standard, so where should students be by the end of this school year? And you can see that just right out, jumps out as first grade has the least amount of students that are on grade level or above at 7%. That is a really hard year on iReady, same as kindergarten. They have a lot of growth to do in first grade. They are now learning how to put sounds of words together. When they were doing their iReady assessment, they had to read complete sentences. And right now they're just farming together and blending together sounds and words. So that looks scary at first, but then by the end of the school year, first grade will level out. You can see that we have, the higher that we get more gaps, except for grade 8, grade 7 has a larger group of students who are 2 to 3 grade levels behind. And then grade 8, we have a smaller band in ELA, which all correlates with the data that Dr. Barker shared from the balanced scorecard. That's why we're never surprised when the GSA comes out. So what are we doing now that we have this data? We've got some new things I want to talk to you about that you have approved, just to tell you the connection and how that works together. So the first is our virtual coaching. You approved a contract with SIDME. Our teachers are already being assigned a virtual coach because we don't have coaches on staff in our district. So if Miss Deanne needs help with classroom management, if she needs help with understanding how to teach English language arts, she needs help understanding discipline, procedures and expectations, whatever that it might be, we can give her her own coach. She meets with virtually once a week for an hour, and they record each other and they watch each other's classroom, and it's a national board certified teacher somewhere in this country who's been through that coaching cycle training. So those are up and going. I can brag on Ms. Roberts again. She was the first one that said, hey, I need my coaching cycles. I've got people who need to get some training. And so she's already has people going. Almost all of our schools have teachers assigned now. But she was chomping at the bit at day one. iReady coach, you also approved a contract for us to hire an iReady coach, a consultant. They are very familiar with the iReady platform, the teaching and the assessment part. But then they're also very familiar with the Ready Math part, our curriculum. So what this person, his name is Carl. Carl is in our district 34 weeks, 4 days a week. So he is one consistent person. The principals have had nothing but good things to say. He's been in our classrooms with our teachers and already reporting back to Dr. Barker and I. We've sat down with him several times. And now that we have data, we're going to make some really solid plans on some teachers. We can drill this data down to the classroom teacher and watch students. And I'm going to show you what that report looks like in just a second. Also embedded classroom support. So just going into the classroom, modeling and helping, not just going in to do a walkthrough, but going in to model and show teachers wonderful ELA strategies. So today I told you Ms. Ashlock was here. That's our reading consultant coach. So she and her team, Summer, has been with her all week. Dr. East will go into special education classrooms. And if Deanne needs support on teaching R-controlled vowels, if she doesn't understand the rules of R-controlled vowels, she can ask for help, and Mrs. Ashlock will get their model right with the kids in the classroom. There's no better professional development than to see that with your kids in your classroom. And you don't have to attend a training, somewhere and come back and have to do all that yourself and remember everything. Miss Garlick is there, so then she can come back and she's learning as she's watching, and then she comes back and she can support that teacher. And that's how we built this system that we've had for, I think it's 9 years now. I did the same thing that Ms. Summers out doing now so that she can learn it and she can go out and support our teachers and be part of that classroom. Text sets, we've talked about that vocabulary piece. We have a group of teachers who've been working all summer long to build text sets. And so we're working on giving teachers tons of books about a topic so that they don't have to go spend their money and buy those. We're going to study the Mayans. We can give them tons of books that they can give their kids and have in their classroom to study science and social studies more in depth. That's how we'll learn that vocabulary. And then trainings, we love to train. We love to do trainings. I think that we're known across the state for all of our professional development. We won't quit. We're now ready for Ready, Read, Write Part 3. And just today we signed up teachers for an online course in the Writing Revolution, in which we know writing will also help our ELA scores. So we've talked about lesson maps before, walkthroughs. You approved cloud cameras for our remaining Title I schools. Those are cameras in the classroom that only the teacher controls. We talked about the last board meeting. That will help teachers just like NFL players record themselves and watch themselves. That's how you get better. Some people don't like to watch themselves teach, but that's a concept that our national board certified teachers do, and that's one that educators really should, if you're going to teach it, you should watch it and try to better your practice. And then standards training. Dr. Barker and I are huge on teachers need to know their standards. So that's something that we're going to roll out and push out to make sure everyone understands the standards and take that to the depth that it should be. We're continuing with peer walkthroughs where our principals are going out and watching each other's schools and watching each other's classrooms and learning from one another. And then Dr. Barker assigned every central office staff member a schedule where we are all to go out and then we have to report back on using a template, using a walkthrough tool, not just going out and saying, this is what I saw, but having meaningful data to come back to share that at central office meetings so we can take that, pull together our resources, and figure out how to help them. And then we do have a reading team called the Page Turners who receive training sporadically from the State Department on the latest research. So now we'll go to math, and Dr. Barker shared the bleak state of mathematics, but we're going to get better. But I do want to explain, I think we've talked about it before, why we're seeing growth in reading and we're not seeing the same growth in math. And yes, attendance last year, the flood and the storms and everything really hurt us, and our daily attendance really seems to hurt us more in mathematics than in ELA. The reason behind that is simple. The main reason children who are chronically absent struggle more to catch up in mathematics than reading lies in the cumulative sequential nature of math skills compared to reading skills. So just think of it like a ladder. If you miss a step on a ladder, it's harder to climb. You've got to have each one of those steps to go up. Reading is like a ramp. You're never going to miss a step in reading. It just kind of naturally flows and it doesn't build upon one another. So that's kind of the mindset that we have to take and figure out how to get kids in school and make sure that they're there every day for math instruction. So here's our math overall placement. 48% on the iReady assessment were in Tier 3, 45 in Tier 2, and only 8% in Tier 1. So when we break down into our domains, we generally never see that one domain outruns the other. They all kind of run together at the same race if we were running a race. By grade level, kindergarten right now is tied with 5th grade at 16% of our students on grade level. What I focus on when I look at this is how much red that we have, and I look at the progression and the middle school grade levels. And we look at how many students are 2 to 3 grade levels behind. That's that red line. It's 2 to 3 grade levels, that top tier 3%. So for example, in grade 8, 70% of those kids right now are 2 or 3 grade levels behind in mathematics. So then trying to catch those students up, we've got to have them in school so that that doesn't happen here. So those kids have been chronically absent for years of instruction that they've missed. So we've got to get them in school, and we've got to get families knowing that it's vital to send them to school every year. We're never doing that and showing up. Oh, I forgot to put that on here. So that is just an example of the stairs or the ladder that if you miss, the skills get harder to regain. And in reading, you can compensate for that because like cause and effect is cause and effect, and you're going to hit that 30 times in a school year. But in math, before I can move on to fractions, I have to know how to add and multiply. So you're going to have to build upon each other. It's harder to catch up in math. So in our math action steps, again, we have virtual personal coaching lined up. We have a lot of teachers right now in mathematics. We have more teachers being coached in mathematics on SIBME than we do ELA. And it should be. That's where we've told them to put the focus and the support. Carl, again, he is not only iReady, but iReady owns our textbook, our Ready Math and K-8. So he is actually helping our classroom teachers understand how to teach their curriculum in Ready Mathematics. We have a math cadre, an awesome group of people out there promoting math. We meet in 2 weeks for our first meeting for this school year. They help us and lead us in mathematics across the district. And then trainings that we have and that are coming up, we'll continue with building thinking classrooms. We've had 2 weekends of that, working with teachers on manipulatives and again, understanding their standards. We do have our ECATs Ms. Garlick and I are going to work on teaching our assistant teachers K through 3, what can you do in the classroom to support instruction? You're not there to sit with the Deannes of the world who might be disruptive students in the classroom. You're there to run a small group. And I'll show you at the end what we've got tools that they can do that very easily with, that they can make a real big impact in the classroom if they're doing what they should be doing. We talked about video walkthroughs, we talked about peer walkthroughs, everything really is the same for mathematics. And then the state, we do have a numeracy team that works with the State Department. They come down every month and give us some tips and tools and strategies on how to support classroom instruction. But really, this is all, and I show you this slide every time, we've got to get this better. Today I printed off a report. Dr. Barker and I are going to go through that. I know Aaron's looking at student chronic absenteeism, but figuring out, I know he made home visits yesterday. They've taken the officers out already. First visit's usually Aaron and the CIS facilitator, and then the next visit we send the deputies out with us. But we've got to get some of these kids in school. Can't teach an empty seat. So today I pulled it, we're at 24.5% chronically absent. And you look here, these are the number of students that are unexcused each day. So you can see when we started at the beginning of the school year, like 54, 60, and we climbed up to 181, like on September 25th. So out of 2,100 students, we had nearly 200 out that day on an unexcused absence. So I just wanted to talk to you about the power of iReady in case you're asked by families anywhere. I can tell you, I think it's one of the best things that we've ever put in place. Some students don't like it because they're held accountable. So the math curriculum, Ready Mathematics, is linked to iReady. It's the same company. It's all linked. And so here's a sample of one of our 5th grade classrooms. She has 28 students. So I just want to show you, what does this look like for teachers that have all of these students with all different grade levels? What are teachers faced with? So this particular teacher has 6 students on or above grade level, 8 that are 1 grade below, so 4th grade level, 14 that are 2 or more grade levels behind, and all of her kids passed the assessment, or did the assessment. So she's got 14 kids that are below grade level, but that doesn't help her to know that those kids are below. She's got to go deeper, and she's got to look at every student and figure out where they are. So if I look at the bottom student, the very bottom one, that child had placed overall in 4th grade, but she's a 5th grade teacher. But in numerical operations, this child scored an early 5. So they're on track in numerical operations. But in algebra, this kid scored at a 4th grade level. And if you go over to geometry, 4th grade level. And those kids are not hard to catch up, and not a lot of work for the teacher to figure out, how do I do that? But it's these kids that she also has in that classroom. So if I look at the last student on this page, that student scored at a 1st grade level in a 5th grade classroom. On numerical operations, he or she scored 2nd grade all the way over until they got to, I think it's algebraic thinking, grade 1, and then geometry, grade 1. So you can see all the different grade levels for that teacher all in one room. 28 kids, one room, and all of those different levels. So the power of iReady is she can click on little Walter over there, and she can get Walter's score. And it will show that Walter is a 4th grade in number and operations, a 2nd grade in algebra and algebraic thinking, a 3rd grade in measurement and data, and a 3rd grade in geometry. So she has to tailor her instruction, and that's hard to do. Then you have to keep up with the kids who are on level, and then work with these students who are all over the place, right? So iReady can help her and give her, this is what Walter can do. We've assessed him. We watch him every day when he's on his platform and he's on his pathway. He can solve addition problems. He can solve basic facts. He can represent unknown equations and subtraction equations. But these are the things he can't do. And these are the things you need to work with Walter on. That is really hard for teachers who themselves do not like mathematics. It's not picking up your textbook and following every page every day. So they have to really differentiate. So what iReady then will do, if she decides, okay, Walter, I'm going to work with you on solving and subtracting comparison situations. It will give her hyperlinks to her Ready Math curriculum, take her back to grade 2. So remember, Walter was like a grade 2 in 5th grade. And if y'all need to ask me questions, I'm just really excited about this for our teachers because I think it's amazing. So a 5th grade teacher doesn't have a 2nd grade set of manuals in her classroom. She has 5th grade manuals. But iReady will allow her to go digitally to a 2nd grade book. And she can run off materials. She can get materials herself. Then she can also print games that are all hands-on learning activities. We call them, they're not really games, but the kids think they're games, for the ECAT to do, and set up a math intervention like we do for reading intervention. So that's all done for this teacher with like 3 clicks. Rather than having to go down to the 2nd grade teacher, borrow her manuals, come up with something to do, iReady does that work for them. They just have to get on there and dig into it and then plan with the ECAT, which the 5th grade's not going to have an ECAT, but K through 3 will have an ECAT. But our Title I math interventionists can also use this work, and they all have access to the data. So just looking at that student or that classroom, I mean, this is really one of our classroom teachers. This is really her 28 students, and they're all over the board in all the different domains. And she has math for 60 minutes every day, plus a little intervention period. So then we also have to bring on the families of Walter to say, Walter is in 1st grade in algebraic thinking or in measurement. We need your help. He's only with us 1,080 hours. He's with you over 5,000 hours awake. We need you to help do these things at home. And we need every hour that we can get him in school to catch him up. So that's just I just thought it was really a big visual to show you the difference that one classroom teacher has. And they're working really hard, and we're trying to streamline it with these kinds of tools because there's no way a classroom teacher is ever going to be able to dig down in there with paper pencil assessments and figure out this data. All right, so do y'all have any questions?
Do the teachers give homework actually now?
So that's a teacher discrepancy. We have a homework policy that they can't grade homework and a time limit for each grade level, but that's a classroom teacher. When I was a classroom teacher, I only gave homework on what I had covered in class, and they were new material that they hadn't studied if we didn't get our work done during the day. So that's just classroom teacher by classroom teacher. What we would much rather them do is to meet with the families during their intervention plan meetings that are starting now and talk with each family. This is where your child is at. Give them some of those tools to work on at home, some of those games and things to reinforce at home rather than doing worksheets of math. So that's not, if you can do 2 of them, you can do 100 problems. So we try not to do worksheets. That's what a lot of time homework used to be a long time ago.
I just think that some kids enjoy actually doing some homework, but I think to me it would be harder for me to know what my child's doing in school if he doesn't bring home something that kind of shows me which math is he going over or what reading level is he actually doing, because I know with my grandson, when he would come home, he'd always get out his work, and he wanted to complete it really fast, but I knew what he was working on. So if we played little games with him, if he was working on 5 plus 5, then we knew pretty much where I did, like what he's doing.
We got teachers who do beautiful newsletters. Some of them share those with our Title I documentation so we can have them, and they'll put, for the next 2 weeks, you can help your child with adding 2-digit addition problems and things like that too. So
yeah, because I think it's important to do that.
Yeah, and some of them are doing it online on Schoology, so they'll do parent newsletters.
So they can practice. Yeah. I was just wondering because I knew that.
Yeah. But I wanted you all to know because we've had some. Dr. Barker and I met with families before. My child hates iReady, and they hate. It's not more that they hate iReady; it's they hate the accountability part of knowing that they're going to have to know where they're at, and it's kind of like going to the doctor and lying about your weight. You just have to be really honest and say, hey, I'm in 5th grade and I'm on a is from a data domain, and I've got 4 years to catch up to all my peers in my classroom. There's no way they're gonna catch those kids up in that little bit of time we have them during the day. So that's why we really gotta pull in the partnerships with families too. And they can do our ready minutes at home. So if a family's not someone who's gonna sit down and work with them like you would do, then that child can pull out their Chromebook and go work on our ready at home. And it's just like having a teacher that's very interactive, like a video game, but it's got a lot of support. But that's what this teacher depends on for all that extra time.
So they can actually practice on the,
Yeah,
that,
they'll
okay.
use on the
Because I was just wondering, like, if you don't have homework, then how does his mom figure out exactly what you're doing at school that I'm gonna be able to help you with? Or, this is a book that, you know, you're reading and sit down and like, let's read this particular story that you're on or whatever, but, I know that a couple years ago, that, at one of the parent meetings that you had, you gave them these little pop-up
Yeah.
and little dice. Do you know that? My grandson learned like snap with that. He, you know, to add, because he knew how many to take, you know, to add, like the 4.
Right.
And then, but that was awesome.
Even hands-on, they love hands-on for sure. And that's just the
But
digital
those were
world we're
good.
in today. Most of them have to have something to do to keep them engaged for more than 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, but those were really, you know, something good that maybe that
Yeah.
consider getting, you know, for the kids, because they really liked it.
I'm the next one, I'm the part 2 on this.
With the peer reviews and the principals supplement to other schools, have we ever considered possibly sending teachers to another classroom to?
We do it with pre-K right now, but we're starting, Jaeger Elementary, got a really neat training on how to do that carefully, to, because you wanna make sure you maintain confidentiality, and there's pieces to it. So Jaeger Elementary actually went last year to Jefferson County Schools, and then Jefferson County Schools brought their team of teachers that had been trained here. So now that we have that model, and that's, and Scarlett went to Harvard with, Jaeger Elementary staff that was on improvement last year, so that money's paid for it. So now that Scarlett knows that, we're gonna start replicating that with other schools, but you have to go through that training before you would be permitted to go, you know, into another school to do that model. And Southside, we'll do it this year with Lincoln. I can't remember what county it is. Lincoln, is it Lincoln? I think it's Lincoln. I think it's McDowell and Lincoln this year, so Southside and Lincoln will do that. So then we're also getting ideas from other school districts. So we learned a lot from Jefferson. Jaeger Elementary put in lots of things that they saw when they went up there to those 2 schools. But Ms. Garlick wants to train everyone in that model and then have them to be able to go out. So we'll start expanding that. But we do have Jaeger and Southside right now.
So usually when we talk about benchmarks, you would get the data from K-8 world, and with 9 through 12, there was really not much. And as you know, in grade 11, in accountability, we have to give them a test, and it's the SAT, it's College Board, because that's what the state has chosen after their request for proposals period. So they were the one with the contract. So pretty much that made our work and our world revolve around SAT. So 11th graders take SAT every single spring, and they can take their scores, they can send their scores to up to 4 colleges, and it's all for free. And if they get a score that qualifies them for Promise, they can qualify for Promise, and if they don't want to, they don't have to repeat the experience. So and it's all provided by the state of West Virginia. But with College Board and SAT, the process is a little bit different because you really don't have the tools like we have with iReady, or even the tools like we have with the testing system for grades 3 through 8. Because students can take module assessments, they can take benchmarks, teachers can create assessments, and they get the data right away. In the high school world before, we would take PSAT 8, 9, and 9th grade, PSAT 10, or PSAT and NMSQT in grade 10, but you would have to wait at least 2 months for you to get the results. And when you don't see something right away, it just kind of fizzles. So we looked quite extensively because you really don't have many solutions for high schools as well as you do in grades K through 8. So we had to talk to other counties, see what works for them. So we have purchased Progress Learning for our high schools. And we have had them do the benchmark just like they do with K-8 World, just so that everybody pretty much in grades K through 11, and like Mountie also tested their 12th graders, they were taking the benchmark. So I just wanted to share this data. It's going to look a little bit different than what you see in K-8 World. So in high school world, grade 9 takes PSAT 8-9. So we can actually, if we like the system, this year is just kind of like a trial base. We might also see if 8th graders can take it once just to kind of see what we need to be ready for. In grade 10, they take PSAT 10, and then in grade 11, of course, it's an SAT test. And if you take a look, the way they get the scores, they have the overall assessment performance, so they have an overall score. And then they also have reading and writing and mathematics. And in reading and writing, you have 4 different domains. They get assessed on craft and structure, information and ideas, expression of ideas, and standard English convention. So if you remember from Amanda's presentation, the setup is different because we have vocabulary, we have comprehension, we have phonemic awareness. Here, that comprehension, vocabulary, they're all revolving around these domains, so it's different. In mathematics, every time we give them a test, they get tested on foundations of algebra, advanced math, problem solving and data analysis, and geometry and trigonometry. And historically, foundations of algebra is where we score the lowest. So that's why we know if you take a look at the K-8 world, like when Amanda said in algebra, algebraic expressions, they were not doing so hot. It also translates in us seeing the same issues in foundations of algebra in grades 9 through 12. So here's the ranges. Because SAT, like PSAT, the tests are built very similarly. They cover the same topics, as you have seen, as the same domains. But what happens if you take a look at, for example, overall score ranges? So in PSAT 8-9, their overall score goes up to 1440. So they can score 240 points at the least and 1440 points at maximum. In PSAT 10, as you see, that ceiling goes up. So they can score up to 1520. But then, of course, the range becomes like if you, for example, were scoring in the middle of the score range on PSAT 8-9, if you stay on the same level in PSAT 10, you'll probably be not in the middle, you'll probably be falling back. And of course, by the time they get SAT to SAT, that ceiling in the bottom, like you have to go from 400 to 1600. And what we like about this benchmarking system, it mimics the real SAT that they will be taking in spring. And then I also wanted to show you that it's also broken down, these scores are broken down by reading, writing, and mathematics. So in 9th grade, their score ranges are from 120 to 720, going up to 160 to 760 in grade 10, and going to from 200 to 800 in grade 11. So that grows, and it's similar to the general summative assessment because those scale scores go up every year. So even if you scored 400 in 1 year, if you stayed the same way, you're not going to be as good in terms of achievement. So here's where you might want to look on paper. So I wanted to compare, because I don't get the aggregate score report as a district, but here's where we are in terms of SAT. So this is the 11th grade. So we tested the 11th grade. So Mountie tested 120 students, Review had 71, and the average score, like Riverview had a higher average score overall on SAT. They scored 906, and Mount View was at 858. If you take a look at their language, Riverview was also higher by 21 points in English, the language, arts, and writing. And with mathematics, they were also higher at 431 in comparison to 404. Of course, we all know that mathematics is where we need to have a lot more focus, because even at the higher range right here, they're still just midway. So when you take a look right here, this is the dotted line is the benchmark. And really, we did not have students getting to the benchmark, like very, very few getting close, but they did not stay at the benchmark. But again, this is the first benchmark, and our teachers actually now, instead of waiting for results for 2 months, they had the results right away. They can click and see how students answered questions, where they made mistakes, and they can assign them work to get better in certain domains. And both Mr. McGuire and Mr. Kennedy were actually telling me that the kids would go and just run to them and say, I got this score. And they said, we've never seen this excitement about the test. So I'm thinking we're moving in the right direction, because I will be also meeting with the both high schools, letting them talk to me about these scores and about their plans to remediate. So let's take a look at the 10th grade. So again, Riverview is a little bit higher than Mount View. So at Riverview, we had 783, and Mount View 751 as an overall score. And as you see, the ceiling is at 1520, so it stays right in the middle. With language arts, very similar, really just a little bit higher. And in mathematics, Riverview is at 400 out of 760, and Mount View is at 375. And as you see right here, if you take a look at the dotted line, with 10th grade, we have quite a bit on a dotted line, which is they're meeting the benchmark. So what it means, if we keep on pushing these students, in 11th grade, we'll have a lot more that are hitting benchmark right away, which means that we will have our numbers of proficiency growing if we keep making sure the students are working toward these goals. So with 9th grade, Riverview had higher difference from Mount View, so they were at 42 as average, and Mount View is at 764. This is the ceiling is 1440. And here's your breakdown between Mount View and Riverview in language arts. So 429 to 399, so a 30-point difference. And with mathematics, 415 to 371. With 9th grade, we have to do a lot more work because they go from, of course, middle school level into the high school level. They go into just working on algebra instead of just having quite a lot of different standards together in just 8th grade mathematics. They're going to the test that is timed instead of just the test that you just sit there all day long, and the test that's structured differently. Because the 10th graders and 11th graders, they have had exposure to PSAT before. So we'll see, I really want to see how 9th grade supports will be approached and what their second benchmark will look like. So just wanted to remind you, our action steps remain the same across the board, even for high school. So we have virtual personal coaching, so we work with CivMe to make sure our teachers are supported. Embedded support in classrooms and schools. We still have some students that are not readers or they struggle to read. So in our exceptional classrooms, we do use other additional supports, supplementary supports to help them get where they need to be. And of course, working on comprehension, because both high school principals tell me that the kids that come to them can read, But when it comes to comprehension, that's where we really need to start pushing. And one thing on SAT, a lot of texts come from historical documents, from scientific reports. Very, very few come from literary text. And that's a different kind of reading. You know, if you read specific reports pertaining to your domain, it's a different vision than reading some literary stuff. So what they have done in high schools, they actually have SAT prep class. So my auntie does it in the morning, and I'll re-review. They do that at the AA period around lunches. And what they do, they have a group of teachers that rotate in and out, and they work with students based on these scores. And we also are including 12th grade because we want 12th grade to go and retake SAT or ACT to make sure that they can reach that promised scholarship. And of course, we are focusing on cross-curricular collaboration, because if we cannot rely on language arts teachers to teach it. Because if we have, scientific texts and we have historical documents, social studies teachers need to be really involved in those. And for mathematics, of course, SIBME, we are participating in, it's called M3T Network. Mr. Ali at Riverview is a fellow at M3T Network, and it comprises a lot of counties. But he leads a lot of professional development with our teachers. They meet after school, they identify certain problems they would like to kind of research and approach and implement in the classroom. So last year he worked with just Riverview and Sandy River teachers. So this year, actually, we are going to do peer observations. They will be visiting each other's classrooms and debriefing. And the last one, we are going to structure this for the teachers, but we're also going to send our mathematics teachers to CTC. Mr. Ellie and I just talked yesterday about, again, remember 55% of our students they're not going to college, so most of them are at CTC, and they do the math that they don't feel much connection to in this high school classroom, but they do it in welding, right? They have to calculate up to just millimeters to make sure that their welds work. In nursing, they have to make sure they can convert stuff correctly, right, Angie? Otherwise, there's going to be a disaster. In auto, they have to, they use math, but they don't realize they use math. So that's why we're going to be sending our math teachers to go and visit those classrooms, to talk to the teachers, to see what math they're using so they can make those connections when the kids are in their classrooms. So we think, with this comprehensive approach, we can keep on pushing the needle of the math achievement. But again, just stole this from Ms. Payton's. It's certified teachers. We actually, on high school side, we have certified teachers, and we need to make sure we keep on providing them with that support. And of course, high schools and middle schools are the ones that we see lots of chronic absentees. So we have a plan with Mr. Lester to really start hitting that. So it's new, but I think it's a really good piece of data for our high schools because they haven't had something like this in ever. So we are working to promote, give them the support that they need to use this system efficiently.
So when, grade 9, the PSATs, when do they actually take those? And do they take them actually to school?
They take this as a benchmark with progress learning. We used to have them take PSAT through College Board, and we would just have spring assessment and a fall assessment, and it would be at the school. The board would pay for those tests. But pretty much a culmination of their testing is in 11th grade. So every 9th grader and 10th grader will get 3 benchmarks a year, and then of course the 11th grader will take 2 benchmarks a year to take before they reach that 11th grade assessment in spring. That is the one that counts. But they are actually working on taking the benchmark and taking SAT and actually counting that as the final for math, because they teach those same concepts, and then it excuses the child from taking the final. so it helps some of them take it a little bit more seriously.
Okay. On G, it's personnel, and you have the personnel agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the personnel agenda? Motion by Larkin,
I'll second.
second by Angie. Do you have any questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, the volunteer agenda, do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion.
Motion by Angie, second by Margaret. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Next is finance allowed and authorized payment of bills, budget revisions, invoices presented for payment are available in the finance office during the normal business hours. Do we have a motion to approve finance?
I'll second.
Motion by Larkin, second by Angie. Do you have any questions on finance? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Action items is the, let's see, what do we have? We only have two. The first one is approved to auction vehicles belonging to the McDowell County Board of Education through public surplus. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion by Larkin,
I'll second.
second by Angie. Do you have any questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Approval of memorandum of understanding between the family auction providers and McDowell County Board of Education.
So moved.
Motion by Margaret,
I'll second.
second by Angie. Do you have any questions concerning that? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Next, we have superintendent updates.
So as Ms. Payton told you, we have two schools on school improvement, which is Bradshaw and Southside. So we are going to our first CSI conference next Tuesday. So we'll, and you will also hear from Ms. Payton, I think, at the next board meeting. So she will tell you about the selection and the next steps that we'll be taking with the process. We have posted the request for proposals for the mapping for our schools. As you know, this was the bill that was approved to the legislature for each school district to have the mapping services created that would be shared with first responders. And we'll be able to have the maps, and that will be sent to the Sheriff's Department, to EMS, so that we have that in case of emergencies. So we are still waiting on that period to close. We did put the request for proposals for weapon detection, so that went down. So we'll be looking through all the bids and documentation and making that decision to put weapon detection systems in both of our high schools. Riverview baseball field, we had the bid opening last week, and we did not have anybody show up nobody bid on the project. So we are trying and working with Mr. Chapman to see what other solutions we can come up with, just so that we can start the work on a baseball field before winter comes, because then it will become really, really hard to do anything. So I just wanted to let you know, it's not that we're not trying, but at this point, we just did not have any contractors to come into the bid opening. But if anything changes, I will let you know. We did have the multi-use scoreboard just installed at Riverview, so that scoreboard will be used during the football games, baseball games, softball games, so it's a multi-use, looks beautiful. We'll share pictures. in on our Facebook page, and I want to thank Hitachi. They contributed $5,000 toward the scoreboard. So whenever we have the grant unveiling, we'll be inviting them because, I mean, they've done a great thing. They also invited our CTE students to come and visit Hitachi. So we'll be doing that because they need to see what kinds of jobs we have available. I know Ms. White's son loves it there. See, he was the one who actually started this, asking for donations. So we're trying to build that relationship with Hitachi because we want our students to succeed and go have wonderful jobs. As you can see, we have homecoming, and that was on both sides of the county. So we'll have the games today and tomorrow on both sides. Wanted to tell you we have a teen expo for young women that's organized by SAD Club and Miss Ginger Day, and it's taking place on Monday, on October 6th at night. We'll start like at 9:30, we'll go on until 2 o'clock. So we are bringing the senior girls to go around the booth, listen to speakers. So, and it's going to be at Jack Caffrey Center. We also are working with Donald Reed with Hope Coalition, so we'll be training teachers on delivering the vaping curriculum to our 9th and 10th graders, and of course delivering the Catch My Breath curriculum to our 8th graders, and also training them on the substance use curriculum, just trying to make sure we put some preventative pieces. And I told you before, one of the things that we do with Dr. Reed is when we have students that are caught vaping, in lieu of suspension or alternative placement, we also offer them prevention programs. So we offer like counseling. We work with Tug River to have medication if it needs to be prescribed, to kind of go through those steps before the student still keeping off on the behavior. Then we can go on a different route. So we're just trying to put some things in place to get the supports for our students. That's all I have.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, hearing none. Announcement of our future meetings. We have a special meeting on Monday at 9 p.m. That's the 6th, right? And then October the 16th, we'll have the regular board meeting here at the central office at 4 p.m. at this time. It is 5:20. Have a motion to adjourn. Motion by Margaret, second by Angie. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.